All right, let's knock this chapter 15 out. Juvenile court, kind of boring, but super important. So, we're going to talk about how the juvenile courts were established, which we've already talked about before. But the juvenile courts are broken into two separate sections, which we've talked about before, but we're going to talk specifically about the delinquency court in this chapter. We have delinquency and dependency. So the juvenile courts handle anyone who is under 18 who has committed a law violation. Okay, so they've broken the law and they're under 18. Blah, blah, blah. The aim is to restore, help, and forgive. The goal is rehabilitation in the juvenile world. It is always rehabilitation. They don't want juveniles to be treated like criminals. And their care, custody, and control are the three things that are really important to the judges. So, like I said before like the 1960s, juveniles didn't have rights in court. Now, after 1966, 67, 70, 71, 75, 77, 79, all these Supreme Court cases have given juveniles more rights in court. So, really, truly, there are just a few things that juveniles do not have the right to that adults do. And one of those is bail, and the other one is a jury trial. They do not have the right to have a jury hear their case. So those are the two basic differences. But otherwise, juveniles have a right to an attorney. They have a right to speedy trial. They have a right to confront their witnesses. They have a right to remain silent. They have all those rights now, but it wasn't always like that. Okay. We are going to talk about, in re Galt, some of the rights, in re Winship, proof beyond a reasonable doubt. I'm not going to ask you specifically about any of these. I just want you to see that it was a progression. Little by little, those rights were awarded to juveniles, just like they were with adults. So you can see double jeopardy, binding over. Okay, let me see. Is that over here? Yeah. Okay. We call this fitness in California, a fitness hearing. But what we're talking about, this guy right here, I don't know if you recognize him, but he is one of the DC snipers. He is the juvenile DC sniper. He and an adult were involved in shooting and killing quite a few different random people in the Washington, D.C. area in probably 2002. And coincidentally, my family, we were on vacation in Washington, D.C. at the time. So the courts had to decide if this guy should be held or treated as a juvenile or as an adult. And we're going to talk a lot more about that in this chapter. So that's what they're talking about. Let me go back here. When they're talking about binding over, we call it fitness in California, but that's what they're referring to here. The structure of the juvenile courts. Juvenile courts are similar, set up similarly to adult courts, except the proceedings are confidential. So if you're just some random person from the street, you can't just walk into a juvenile court hearing most of the time. So, and you'll see this part right here, probation officers. Probation officers are almost always involved in the court system throughout the entire juvenile justice process, which is different in the adult world. In the adult world, probation officers only really get involved during sentencing. In the juvenile world, probation officers get involved from the get-go. So otherwise, of course, it's really similar. You're going to have a judge or a referee. That's basically a person who's standing in as a judge. Defense attorney, prosecutor, like I said, probation in the juvenile world, and then you got your outside agency staff. I'm going to skip through this. Probation officer, we already talked about that. All right, so we're talking about the pretrial procedures. So when we're talking about pretrial, we mean just that, anything that happens before the trial actually begins. So detention hearing, that's typically the first hearing that a juvenile will have in the whole court process. And that's typically takes place within 48 to 72 hours, and the judge will decide if the juvenile should remain in custody or be released. Intake. This is another area where the juvenile world is a little different. It's a lot different than the adult world. In the juvenile world, a police officer will arrest a juvenile. I think I said in the juvenile world. They'll arrest the juvenile, they write up their police report, and they submit their police report to the probation department. They don't submit it to the DA like they do in the adult world or the prosecutor. They submit it to the probation department, and a probation officer will read the police report and decide whether or not the case should get referred to the DA's office. So it's a little bit different. We're going to talk more about adult court stuff in just a second, but detention hearing basically is when an officer or the court is deciding whether or not a juvenile should remain in custody. A detention center, we're typically calling this is just a juvenile hall. There are some shelters that we actually have locally for status offenders, like it's not the Craycroft. There's a Craycroft Center, and then there is the other one that I can't think of right now, but it'll come to my mind shortly, where runaway youth can go. A juvenile cannot be housed in the same facility with adults unless they are out of sight and sound of any other adults. I know, it's kind of weird. House arrest, you've all heard of what that is. It means stay home. I don't even know what this attention home means, so we're going to skip that. Bail. Juveniles do not have a right to bail. Intake. I'm going to kind of skip through this too. We already talked about the fact that a lot of cases are handled informally in the juvenile world, meaning they go to diversion programs like restorative justice or things like that. So, all right. So now we're going to talk about the part that you might actually be interested in. So juveniles, if you are in California over the age of 16, this changed recently, but over the age of 16, and you commit a serious violent felony, that is what we would sometimes call a strikeable offense, you can be charged as an adult. Typically, we're talking about things like robbery, rape, murder, attempted murder, assault by means likely to cause great bodily injury. We're talking about serious offenses. And in California, like I said, they talk about waivers and binding over. These are two things that a lot of other states use. In California, we use the phrase fitness hearing. So ultimately, a juvenile court judge will decide if an offender is fit for juvenile court. Okay? So, let's see, what else? Statutory exclusions, we're going to kind of, I've never seen this, either one of these, so I'm going to skip through that. Trial proceedings. Disposition hearing in the juvenile world is exactly the same as a sentencing hearing. Adjudicatory hearing or adjudication hearing is exactly the same as a trial. Okay, there you go. Adjudication. Skipping. These are all different possible consequences or dispositional alternatives. Case could be dismissed. Restitution could be ordered, meaning the juvenile would have to pay the victim back. Outpatient psychiatric therapy, probation, foster home placement. So sometimes if you've got a juvenile who gets in trouble but doesn't have an appropriate parent or guardian to take care of them, they might get placed in foster care through probation. Day treatment programs. This is a program, and we have one in Fresno, where the juveniles will go to school half the day and treatment half the day, and then they live at home the rest of the time. Community-based residential treatment programs. This is things like group homes, which are everywhere. Institutionalized in mental hospitals. We have very few of these. City or county institution, that would be like juvenile hall. State or private training center, or adult facility, youthful offender facility. So you'll think CYA, California Youth Authority, which no longer exists, is now called the Division of Juvenile Justice, CDCR DJJ, California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation Division of Juvenile Justice, basically prison for kids. Juveniles, like adults, have the right to appeal. So if they don't believe something was done fairly or properly in court, they have the right to appeal that. Sentencing. Oh God, we have permanent and indeterminate sentencing. I'm gonna kind of skip through this. I'm skipping. What effect do you believe would have? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so again, transferring to adult court. In California, like I said, it has to be a strikable offense, and the offender has to be at least 16 years of age to be tried as an adult. So the one thing that still cannot happen as a result is the death penalty. So let's say on the day before Johnny's 18th birthday, he goes to an elementary school and he shoots and kills 30 students and 5 teachers. It's the day before his 18th birthday, so he's still 17, meaning he's still a juvenile. He is not eligible for the death penalty because he was a juvenile at the time the offense was committed. Okay? I might ask something like that. I don't know. Oh my gosh, this is the longest chapter ever. Ah, yay, we made it. Okay.